Hello everyone and welcome back to Jenna Voice. Today's video is really exciting because this is my first review of my first audition for this season. So before we get started, I want to say that for these videos, I have decided not to name the programs that I have auditioned for, mainly because I am going to be talking about the negative aspects of that particular audition. I want to be as honest with you guys as possible. So I'm going to talk about the good and I'm going to talk about the bad of my personal experience with these auditions. So let's get started. So this audition was, I think, about 3 weeks ago now in Boston, and the structure for this audition was that you would go and sing for a 5-minute period, and then the following day they would have a potential callback for you. So because of that, I was in Boston for about 4 days. Typically, I like to arrive to my destination a day before the audition to make sure I have time to recover from traveling, and just in case, God forbid, a flight is canceled or delayed or any sort of thing like that, so I'm not stressed about getting to my audition. So the requirements for this audition were pretty loose. They said we could bring in any combination of musical theater, art song, and arias, but they needed at least one piece to be in English because this program does everything in English. So because of the opportunity to do an art song, which is not common for auditions, I took advantage of this and I brought along one of my favorite art songs that I've ever sung, which is Silent Noon by Ray Vaughan Williams. I also brought Children Will Listen from Into the Woods, and I brought a couple of Italian selections, Batti Batti from Don Giovanni and Prendi per me sei libero from L'Elisir d'Amore. And so I chose as my first piece to be Silent Noon. Now let me backtrack for a second. When I got to the location, this was at the New England Conservatory in Boston, and when I got there, I didn't really see anyone near the designated room that they had told us the audition was in, so I thought, you know, maybe they're on lunch break because my time was at 1:10, I believe, or 1:15. So I went to find their practice rooms. Now I had to laugh because in one of their contact emails, they said, we have 2 practice rooms, but only 2, so you could only use them for about 5 minutes each, which I laugh at because really, you can't do much in 5 minutes. You can sing through a piece once, but when you're traveling, it's really hard to find a place to warm up other than your hotel or doing lip buzzes on the street when you're walking over there. You know, it's really difficult. So, but because like I said, when I got there, I wasn't seeing anybody around, I actually got in a practice room and was able to use it for a good 15 minutes before I saw somebody else waiting for one. So that is a good reason to go early. I don't think I said, but I also try to get to my location an hour before my actual audition time, just in case there's a schedule change, if they're ahead of schedule, and make sure I have plenty of time to have access to a practice room if they provide one. So that ended up really working in my favor in this situation since they only have the 2 practice rooms. Also, when they started to get set up for the auditions, they put out a sheet that had the list of singers and their time and the order, and I realized I was the 3rd person to sing. They were not on their lunch break. They started at 1 o'clock. So they were going from about 1 p.m. to I think 7:30 with a couple of short breaks. So I was the 3rd person of about 60 people, which, being early on the roster, it doesn't necessarily work in your favor, only because it can be more difficult to be remembered after hearing so many people in one day. You know, regardless of your time, you should still be giving a really exciting and wonderful performance, you know, the best you can, and I always do. but it's more often not in your favor to be that early in the day when there's so many people to be heard. So I went in to sing my piece. Like I said, I started with Silent Noon by Ralph Vaughan Williams. I introduced the piece, and one of the adjudicators said, "Oh, I love this piece. This is one of my favorite pieces." And even the accompanist there said a similar comment, you know, "Oh, I love this song," which, you know, definitely helps your spirits and gets you really excited to perform if you know at least a couple of people in the room really like it. So I felt that my audition went well, that I sang that piece well. Like I said, the time slots were only 5 minutes, so I could only sing one piece. So after that, you know, I said thank you, they said thank you, shook my hand. That same adjudicator who said he liked the piece said it was really a pleasure to hear me, which isn't something I've ever heard at an audition. You know, maybe he's just a really friendly and polite man, but he didn't need to say that, you know what I mean? So I really appreciated him saying that, and it definitely put me in higher spirits about how my audition went. Now, they gave us a sheet with more information about the program, and in one of the paragraphs they said we would hear by 9 p.m. that night if we were granted a callback. Now, this was my biggest disappointment with how they handled the program, or how they handled the auditions, was because I assumed that meant they would contact all the people they heard that day if they got an audition, or if they didn't get an audition, you know, let them know, is it a yes or no? And that was not the case. They only let the people know who got the callbacks. Those who didn't were scrolling through their email, refreshing it for about a 1 hour period like I was, until I realized it's a no. And that was really kind of crummy, to be honest. It just, I understand it's a lot of people to send an email to, but if you go through the trouble to invite us all there, I feel like you could go through the trouble of putting us into 2 groups and sending 2 generic emails, you know? So that was rather disappointing, and because they scheduled their callbacks the following day, I was there for more time than I needed to be. I mean, I made the most of it. I still had a good time in Boston, but it's like, when you're stretching out an audition period like that and making us stay more time when we don't necessarily need to, it costs us more money, and it's frankly just not the most fair way of handling an audition, in my opinion. So that was my biggest disappointment with the program, with how they handled their callbacks for the auditions. Otherwise, I'd say my experience was good, just in how they were organized and polite, at least to me, and that's something I always appreciate. So, since I did not get a callback, I'm assuming that's a no from the program. They said also that they should be sending a kind of follow-up complete email after they finish all of their auditions, which is in early November, I think. So I should get another email from them, but anyway, I got my foot in the door. I hope it was a positive foot despite not getting a callback, you know. I suppose I could have chosen a more flashy and showy aria to, you know, start off my audition with, but I didn't, and I don't necessarily regret that. Like I said, a couple people were excited about that piece. It's a piece I love to perform. I think there's still so much I could show with my acting and emotions and dynamic contrast, even though it didn't have like an incredibly high range or a ton of coloratura, you know. It was still a really special piece, and I hope that I was still able to give a really special performance with it. So that is my review of my first audition this season. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've had an audition so far this season, I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below. And as always, please subscribe if you have not and want to keep up with more videos like this. And I will talk to you all very soon. Bye.